Hey, what's going on, guys? I know it's been a minute, but that Union Cross update the other day was pretty beefy. So I think it's about time we put on our theory caps for a bit because I have a couple of them coming at you over the next couple of days. Also, sorry I really couldn't get a reaction video out on them. The last couple of days have been pretty busy, and by that point I figured I'd rather just wait and digest all the information we got and put out something genuine instead of trying to just get something out here immediately, because members of this community deserve nothing but the best from me. But now that's out of the way, Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. I just want to talk. So with the most recent update, we got a lot of good information about quite a few things that could not only tie into Union Cross's ending, but also phase 2 of the Kingdom Hearts series. Never before have I seen an update where they say so much yet somehow leave us in the dark about everything. We got a pretty good look into the Master of Masters' true plan for Daybreak Town and learned a lot more about the mysterious entity called Darkness. We also got a confirmation that beings of pure light exist, which honestly makes a lot of sense. Because if beings of pure darkness exist, it makes sense that a being of pure light also exists in there somewhere. Then we got something that I'm going to talk about more in another video, but in the conversation between Darkness and the Master of Masters, he says that when all of the arcs are used and when they leave the world will end. He then goes on to say that the Book of Prophecies isn't all that important and it only contains information that was seen by the gazing eye. It's not the all-telling book that we thought it was. And while all that's great and I will be discussing it soon, what I want to talk about is the scene with Lucio and Darkness. In that scene, we see Lucio carry someone or something inside of a white cloak into the room with the Ark and place it inside. And when Darkness asks what he's putting inside the Ark, Lucio says that it's a seed of light to be planted in the future, the true Dandelion. And that's interesting for multiple reasons, because a lot of people have been theorizing about multiple characters that could have been the one to be placed into the Ark and make it in the future. I've seen people theorize that it could be Ventus or Skull, but based on what we know, I don't think that could be the case. And that's purely based on the fact that other than the pod that the true Dandelion got in, there are still 5 pods there, which means that this is the real Daybreak Town, since when Lorian fought Maleficent in the data version of this room, the room got messed up and the pod in the middle was destroyed while the one on the far right was taken. And since this is the real Daybreak Town and there are still 5 pods here, that means the Union leaders haven't made it here at all. Because if they did, that means at least some of the pods will be gone. So that to me means that the only reason that the pod is missing from this room is because, again, Maleficent used it after escaping from Data Daybreak Town. So that in itself leads me to believe that this scene is happening at the same time as the conflict with Darkness, or sometime shortly after Maleficent left Data Daybreak Town. And that means at the time of this scene, all the Union leaders, including Skull and Ventus and possibly Arena, are inside of the data world. So that essentially rules out Ventus and Skull being the quote true Dandelion. The only ones that aren't accounted for that have been theorized about are possibly Arena, but mostly Ava and Strelitzia. And personally, I think the person in the art could possibly be Strelitzia for a couple of reasons. First things first, Lucio calling whoever was placed in the arc the true Dandelion could be referring to the fact that Strelitzia was killed and replaced by Ventus. This could be interpreted in a lot of different ways, but I think he is referencing that she was one of the true Union leaders that never really got the chance to become a Union leader because of Darkness. And honestly, this part might be more of a reach, but this is just something I'd noticed while watching this update. But there's been a lot of language related to flowers, calling her the true Dandelion and a seed of light to be planted in the future. All this language could point towards Strelitzia, and while this is more half of a point that I just want to talk about more than a full point, it's still something that I just kind of wanted to mention. But one thing that I'm sure a lot of people are thinking at this point is that Lucio had a cloak that seemingly had a body in it, and Strelitzia's body pretty convincingly disappeared when she was killed by Darkness, and that's fair. But one thing that could have happened that still makes me think that the true Dandelion is actually Strelitzia relates to how the Master of Masters and Maleficent sort of updated how time travel works during Union Cross's run. So before, we were under the assumption that when you time traveled, you needed a version of yourself at the destination. And by a version of yourself, it meant sort of a whole person, kind of like how young Xehanort being there was the reason that Xehanort could travel back to that time as Ansem. But what happened with the Master of Masters and Maleficent during Union Cross is that they showed us that now you can travel through time as long as you have 2 things, a medium that can reconstruct your body and a person who has memories of you. But how does all of this relate to Strelitzia? Well, here's how. So the Master of Masters used his eye to be able to time travel, and that makes sense because the eye is a part of him. But Maleficent used a coat, which of course is just clothing, something that can be changed at any point in time. So that to me means that as long as something related to that specific person is there, be it clothes or a physical part of them, and if it's in the presence of someone with memories of them, they can be reconstructed. So what could end up happening is that Luxu could have put some sort of intermediary in the arc to send to the future, and while not her actual body, it could be some sort of vessel for her to take over if or when she ends up in the current timeline, since those are no stranger to the Kingdom Hearts series. And while Luxu wouldn't have any memories of Strelitzia to revive her, we do know someone in that timeline who does, and that someone is her older brother Lorium, or as we know him, Marluxia. But we even see that his memories come back at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3 after being defeated by Sora in the Keyblade Graveyard. So it is possible that Luxu sent some sort of intermediary to the future, maybe something that she ended up giving to her brother Lorium, or something that possibly represents her, possibly an actual Strelitzia flower, and plans to somehow reunite that with Lorium to bring Strelitzia back to the current timeline. And Strelitzia would be a development that I'd be okay with, because it'd be weird to sort of introduce a character that's directly related to someone as important to the story as Lorium, just to have her killed and be the catalyst for these events. You know, I wouldn't be upset with it per se, but at the end of the day, I think having Strelitzia back would be a good way to progress the story as well. Because honestly, I do think that would be an interesting way to bring back the memories of people like Ventus and Subject X, who we can assume is Skuld. Seeing Strelitzia could be enough to start the process of restoring the memories of people like Ventus and Skuld, and also make for some very interesting interactions. Seeing Lorium and his sister reunite after so long would definitely end up being one of the more wholesome moments in the series in my opinion, and having Strelitzia have a conversation with Ventus about what happened would be a conversation I'd like to see should this end up panning out. And while there is some credibility to the true Dandelion being Ava, I think have it being Strelitzia would definitely make for a better story as we wait in anticipation for the final update of Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. So, not gonna lie, it kind of felt nice to put on the theory cap for a bit, but that's gonna be all from me today. And if you want to see more Kingdom Hearts theories or analyses on JRPGs like Kingdom Hearts, Persona, or Final Fantasy, go ahead and click that subscribe button down below. That being said though, this is Moose Wayne, signing off.